This is Ronda Barrett with the Department of Social Work and Gerontology at Shippensburg University. And this is my presentation on foster care and systems theory for human behavior in the social environment. The social welfare system performs an important role of protecting children in our society. They respond to reports of abuse and neglect. They rush in to assess risks, and they intervene and work to get children to safety as swiftly as possible. Their goals then are to protect the children, but it's really to support families. And the goal is to keep families intact and provide for support so that that can happen, support them getting back together if the children actually have to be removed temporarily. And that's where they provide foster care. But they're really looking ultimately for permanency, whether for that child, whether it is back with the family or in another location. By the numbers here. For the end of fiscal year 2022, the Department of Health and Human Services, these are the numbers from the Adoption and Foster Care Analysis and Reporting System. During that year, there were over 569,000 children that went through the system and were helped in some way. At the end of that year, there were over 368,000 still in care. That was placed into foster care. But during that year, there were 186,000 over that number, new children. So some of those children in that 368,000 number, those are children still from previous years, still in the system and receiving foster care. So children get reunified, children exit out, but that's the range of numbers of children that are affected. So another way to look at it, in our society, 3 in every 1,000 children enter foster care each year. And that number of 3 to 4 per 1,000, that ratio has been steady for about 20 years. Prior to that, there were years where it was 6 per 1,000. There were times when it was 9 per 1,000. And most of the foster care homes are with non-relatives. That's 44%. But 34% of young children end up with relatives for their foster care. And the other percentages may be in group homes or other settings. So this goal of reunification with the parents is high on the list, but that does happen in about 52% of cases, but 44% of children do end up in situations where it's adoption. The number of children in the system that manage to work their way back out, either usually through unification, if it's within a year, is about 40%. The other bulk stay, it's 24 months or less, with fewer staying past that. That's when you get into older children who may continue in group homes. Teenagers may continue in group homes and age out of the system, but that's actually a very small fraction of the foster care system. The average age is 6 years old, and 62% of the children in the system are under 8 years old. The racial makeup is 45% white, 21% Black, 20% Hispanic, 2% Alaskan or Native American. So the traditional view of foster care in the system is that children come, there's a notification of a child being at risk, and they come in contact with the system. And the system looks at that problem, at what's being reported, and that's how they're interacted with. So neglect is overwhelmingly the #1 reason why children interact with the system. And it is defined as lack of food, shelter, supervision, education, or medical care due to actions or habits of the parent or caregiver. So that's a broad umbrella that covers quite a bit. In these categories, you'll see it does not add up to 100% because you can be placed into foster care you can have more than one of these checked off as the reason. But neglect is the #1 reason. 33% are due to parental drug abuse. And this overwhelmingly is opioid addiction is what is covered there. And the guidelines are careful to explain that that is ongoing drug use, not a one-time, not a temporary event. It's about ongoing drug use. Caretaker inability to cope, 13%. For that description, it's physical or emotional illness or disabling condition that interrupts their ability to care for the children. So that could be mental health related issues. It can be physical disabilities, but it is it's a disruption in their ability to cope. And then the same amount is the physical abuse at 13%. And considering that most people, when they hear CPS is involved, the stereotype or the first thing that comes to mind is physical abuse. That number of 13% certainly pales next to neglect at 62%. The next on the list is housing at 11%. So again, this is that issue of an ongoing situation where they're unable to secure permanent or sufficient housing. The other list that falls down from 10%, there's 8% is child behavioral problems. So this is where a child is acting out, physically acting out, or not able to handle themselves, and their parents can't handle how they're acting out, and it's being shown, displayed at school, at home, and other environments. After that is parental incarceration. Obviously, there has to be care for the child if there are no relatives or other caretakers available. Next comes alcohol abuse of the parent, by the parent, in which, like the drug abuse, it's an ongoing problem. Then with only 5% being related to abandonment, and then after that, sexual abuse, and this is something that everyone in the system believes is way underreported. But then another surprising entry after that is child drug abuse. And although, there can be incidents of the children using drugs, included in this are infants that are born to drug-addicted mothers. that are then taken and placed into the custody of foster care. So the traditional approach here is to see the problem, swoop in, take the child to safety, and push back on the parent to say, okay, you have to go solve this problem. And then come back, prove it's solved, and we'll reunify. So with a lot of these issues, there is an urgency. There's a need to remove the child from harm, get the child the care that they need so that they're safe. So that's important, but it's a single issue approach, and it can fragment the response and not lead to sustainable change. So 27% of children who are reunified with their parents actually re-enter the foster care system at some point. So systems theory is an interesting theory to apply then to this situation. While an immediate need is addressed, are there other opportunities with that touch point with that parent where other things can be pursued and brought to the table? So systems theory, it views the individual as part of these interconnected systems, that they're not an island to themselves. They're impacted by the world that they live in at a small level and at a larger level. There's a belief in this: by addressing systemic issues, you can lead to improvements in overall well-being. So this whole model leans towards a cohesion approach. So it's accepting that this is the world we're living in. These are the operations. This is how it works. These are the institutions that are in place. These are the services in place. These are the laws in place that we have to adhere to. How can we use all of these things to our advantage to help someone? But how can we also recognize where they're doing harm, so we don't just take on the burden of it's that individual's behavior or poor choice that's causing all of these problems? Because it takes this view of, okay, there's something we can figure out, these mechanisms, and there's something you can do differently to impact your situation, resilience becomes a part of what's important for individuals to realize that they have and that they're building over time, so that when the systems they interact with cause a disturbance again, or thwart their ability to fulfill their needs, they can remember that they've navigated successfully before, and they can call on some of those systems that they've reached out to and used before to make progress again, as Payne described. So they're seeing a child within a system. There is the family system theory that could be used with a child, and that can talk about the dynamics between how the parent and their behaviors affect on the child and vice versa, and then how that might kick off a dynamic between everyone. And is there a way that their communication and their connectedness can be changed so that they're sort of all rowing in the same direction instead of feeling like they're pushing against each other, is one question. And then there's this broader approach to systems where you're looking at the ecological systems, where you're looking at the rings from the micro to the meso to the macro. And you can see here it's family and child relationship, but then it's also school and peers, that realm of influence, broader community, the neighborhood you live in, the resources that are available in your community. How accessible are they to you? Are you in an urban area or a rural area? How well funded are those sources around you? Your interaction with the government policies, those effects on you. And then more broadly, just culture and society. So, if in social work, if a child has an eating disorder, there may be dynamics in the family and pressure from the parents for them to perform or achieve a certain state of excellence, and maybe they're using food as a control mechanism, so that dynamic can be explored. But maybe it's cultural images, messages that they get from the media that is making them question and have issues about their body image. So bringing to awareness to that individual these varying layers of what they're sort of metabolizing in the world and what they're reacting to can then empower them to push back on those things and then look through all these same spheres of influence to find positive sources of reinforcement. So application of the theory in the foster care scenario, a parent may be sent in because their child is not, someone notices that they're not eating and they're reported for neglect. They sit down, they can be told they have to get the child fed, and what the checking back in will be, they can be given all the rules, but and they may or may not be able to scramble and meet needs and may end up back in this situation again unless it's explored more. So, what is the obstacle to feeding the children? Is it money for food? Is it, being unemployed? Is it being unemployed because of education? Is it an issue of transportation? Is it an issue of childcare to become employed, to be able to have money? Is it a mental health issue that's preventing them from getting to work and following through on a day-to-day basis? Then with systems theory, then you can look at solutions to what may be in other parts of their spheres of their lives to push them forward and being able to solve it. So that then is the positive reach out through the systems to food banks and to supplemental food benefits, making sure that they're signed up for those. So it's sort of problems may ripple in, but so solutions can also ripple in as well. And so that's a great opportunity to intervene and point those things out. So some of the work out there that's being studied in the area of neglect, how much is neglect is because of behavioral choices of parents, and how much of neglect is about poverty. So Ginther and Johnson Montoya studied the child tax credit. When it's expanded, interaction with the foster care system goes down. Reports of neglect go down. When TANF is made more complicated, there's more hurdles, and caseloads go down, neglect reports go up. When then Johnson Montoya Matayama also studied specifically SNAP benefits. When SNAP benefits are expanded, then the neglect reports go down as well. So they specifically are working on studies to challenge the system at a federal policy level that the reporting of neglect is intimately tied to poverty, and mechanisms that we know successfully combat poverty should not be cut, and the threshold for and requirements for being able to access them should not be made more difficult, but be simplified. And a large portion of this could be solved. So that veers over to, other theories that want to change the system itself. But these are existing benefits that could just be improved and then improve numbers in terms of people having to interact with the foster care system. Agbananya and Keeney looked at parental drug abuse and relationships with CPS organizations. And when CPS organizations had said, okay, here's your referral, go to rehab, you can get your kid back, a lot of people did not go. When they had a recovery program or access to the intake person as a part of their office, a few more people went. When they had that plus a recovery coach, so making contact with someone that was there to see you through the recovery program and then promise to be with you afterwards, many more people did the program, stuck with the program, and were able to see their way to reunification with their children. So the chances of reunification were higher, and then the permanency of reunification was higher, all by having added this role of this recovery coach that could follow along and help these people through this process. So again, a meso-level resource, just spending one-on-one time with that individual got them on a road that then they could sustain. Another study, we talked about when infants are born to drug-addicted mothers, that they can be placed into foster care. Well, there are states that have made these punitive policies where if you're getting care with your OB and the OB suspects that you're drug addicted or knows, and they test you, you can be pre-signed up for your child to be taken away from you at birth. States with that policy have a 10% increase in the number of infants taken into foster care for that reason, for child drug addiction. This, of course, drives people away from seeking care that's desperately needed for their own health and for the health of the infant. And you get increased risk of mortality rates for both, and less of an opportunity for people to seek help for their drug addiction during that time, which for many people going through that, sometimes that's a turning point that helps them then turn to recovery. Another issue from a systems perspective with CPS is that there are some preventative opportunities when you interact with CPS to find out, oh, you can get some mental health support. You can, see a therapist. There's sort of warning level interactions where it's like, hey, this doesn't meet the threshold for us to intervene, but here's some suggestions that will put you guys on the right path, especially in ethnic communities. There's a great deal of stigma of being contacted by CPS, but also about interacting with therapy or those kinds of services. So Chambers and Radcliffe, they suggest that a lot of money should be spent on campaigns and efforts to normalize seeking that kind of help, and that within CPS, the dynamic needs to change so that people are partnering, because even within CPS, there are practitioners who also do have bias and also perpetuate the stigma. So they're looking at the lost opportunity within the system to support people and prevent the need for CPS intervention. That really those investigations that turn out to not meet the threshold of further intervention are really important forks in the road to give people an opportunity to add skills, learn about other resources that they can turn to. And the other thing is that has been studied is that declining initial help is exactly tied statistically to an increased likelihood of future removal. So strengths of systems theory, I think its power is that it removes this focus on personal blame. That, okay, you're the problem, figure it out. Looking more broadly allows you to have context for what's going on, maybe remove some shame, and not feel paralyzed by that, and sort of open a window for accepting help and looking at ways to address it. It opens the avenue towards additional help and support. You can learn about other resources that are available. And it has the potential to link you to sustainable change. Those mechanisms are the types of things that can have long, less having to interact with the system again by falling short. Before it happens, you can reach back out to certain resources and get some help. Limitations, though, sometimes when you start to look more broadly, then where that line of individual responsibility is can get blurred or, sort of fall into the background. Still, at some level, they have to take action. They have to make decisions and modify behavior. For practitioners, if we try and pull together the big picture, we too can sort of get lost in the complexity that if there are so many layers that are contributing to the circumstances that this person is facing, where do you begin? Which part of this do you begin to act on? So that overwhelm can cause paralysis, or cause you to start in a wrong area of care. So with safety being the number one concern, taken care of first, it's important to, over time, look at the types of things that will most effectively bring people to a more empowered place to move forward in their lives. As a conclusion, foster care is important. It saves lives. It's really important that they're there to react with urgency and stay focused on the immediate problem. But applying a systems view would allow the transformation of those touchpoint opportunities and create less placements, more reunifications, and hopefully more sustained change. Here are my references. Thank you.